Did George R. R. Martin confirm Game of Thrones is getting a new ending? 2019 was a year of endings for many of our favorite nerdy properties. The Infinity Saga came to a close over in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, the Skywalker Saga finished after 40 years of Star Wars films, and Game of Thrones aired its final season, which was a thing that happened, the Dark Phoenix of television. What a busy year. While some endings were good and some were middling, most fans would agree that the ending to Game of Thrones was the bitterest pill for people to swallow. And speaking of endings, if you somehow missed that Game of Thrones finale or just blacked out that period of your life, this episode will get a little spoilery, so take this warning and run. If you're sticking around though, why not toss us a like and subscribe? Now, complaints about the final season of Game of Thrones ranged across the board, from so many questions being left unanswered by showrunners David Benioff and D.B. Weiss, to characters acting out of character, to so many plots lovingly set up over seasons being cast aside and meaning absolutely nothing, like the Azor Ahai prophecy and Jon's lineage. The show didn't even explore some seriously important in-world things like how paper cups, coffee chains, and the invention of plastics would affect warfare moving forward. Wait, what? The coffee cup was a mistake? It's not lore? Ew. Well, suffice it to say, fans were pissed. And at the time, A Song of Ice and Fire creator and author George R. R. Martin took to his not a blog, but definitely a live journal, to seemingly defend the show's ending. Now it appears there's hope for fans who felt let down when those credits rolled for the last time. A dream of things that could be set right. A dream of spring, if you will. In a recent interview with the German publication Welt, Martin teed up some interesting tidbits that should be enough to bring any fan back into the fold. Now, it's important to note that these quotes have been translated into English, so they might not be exact, but the message remains the same. So what did Martin say? Well, a big thing to note is that he said we saw an ending, not the ending. He then highlighted the fact that the makers of the show overtook him, which he did not expect. It's like what happened with Naruto, why there was so much filler. God, he could skip like 60 episodes in that original arc. Anyway, I'm not salty about it like 15 years later. While he's spoken before about the nature of storytelling across different mediums like television and novels, it's good to have confirmation that not everything we saw up on the screen is going to play out the same whenever those final two novels eventually come out. That said, we do know some aspects from the series ending will coincide with Martin's plans for the books. Isaac Hempstead Wright, who plays Bran in the series, mentioned in an HBO documentary about Game of Thrones that David and Dan told me there were two things George R. R. Martin had planned for Bran, and that was the Hodor revelation and that he would be king. Now, honestly, this isn't so surprising. It would be weird if the whole time travel aspect of Hodor's life wasn't planned from the start. But we expect Bran, being the three-eyed raven, will actually mean something more in the books instead of just, him being bait during the Battle of Winterfell or whatever he was doing that whole time. Now, maybe, just maybe, we'll actually find out why the White Walkers hate him so much. Doctors hate him. What's his secret? Time travel. Another reveal by Martin is that Game of Thrones films were a possibility at some point, and that a few years back, there were serious discussions about the series and how they could tie it up in a trilogy of movies after its 7th season. Ultimately, though, HBO moved on from that idea. Although, to be fair, with the 6 episodes comprising the show's 8th season, it kind of wound up being the same as a trilogy of movies with the runtimes. Now, all in all, it's actually great to hear The Winds of Winter and A Dream of Spring are still being worked on, and that the endings will address some of the things that fans did not enjoy about the show's final season. We'll just have to wait and see, though, once the books finally drop, whenever that may be. But what do you folks think? Are you glad we're going to get a different ending to A Song of Ice and Fire? It's, a remix to a song. It makes sense. Was that ending to Game of Thrones really that bad? And when do you think The Winds of Winter will finally release? Before or after the heat death of the universe? Let's discuss. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed what you saw, why not give us a like and subscribe while you're at it? And if you want to get notified every time we go live with a new show or drop a new video, please feel free to mash that little bell. That way you can be up to date on all the latest theories, news, and rumors in the pop culture world.